got them diamonds on me, diamonds on me, diamonds on me. Yeah, I got them diamonds on me.
Welcome back, Diamond Crew. You are locked into the Diamond Crew Sports Podcast. Look, you're home for the deepest dives and the sharpest analytical takes in the game. Look, I am your host, Hotta, and we have a massive episode for you today. Look, man, let's talk about the headlines. The headlines is simple. The Philadelphia Eagles, reeling from a 3-game losing streak, didn't just win. They delivered a statement. They absolutely dismantled the Las Vegas Raiders in week 15, winning 31-0, a historical disaster for the Raiders. Look, man, we're going to break down everything. You know, the near perfect passer rating from Jalen Hurts, the staggering 76.9 third down conversion rate that defined the Eagles' control, and the Raiders' offense, which managed to, gather up a pathetic 75 yards total. Look, that's terrible. We're going to look at the metrics, that prove that this was a complete mismatch. Eagles needed this win to keep pace in the playoff hunt. And the Raiders, well, they just solidified their position for a top draft pick. Let's dive into the numbers. Starting with a team that finally got its swagger back, in my opinion. You know what I mean? When you look at the box scores, the Eagles' dominance jumps off the page, but the analytical story is even more compelling. This game was won on efficiency and time of possession. Let's talk about it. Let's start with the quarterback, man. Jalen Hurts was under immense pressure coming into this game, but he responded. He responded with a performance that was analytically flawless. He finished with a 154.9 passer rating. For those who live and breathe metrics, this is damn near a perfect rating. He went 12 of 15 for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 turnovers. This is the definition of clean, efficient, and a dominant performance. He didn't force anything, man. He took what the defense gave him and executed with straight precision. But the real analytical key to this victory was the Eagles' ability to stay on the field. They converted an astonishing 10 out of 13 third down attempts, which is a 76.9 conversion rate. Think about that, Diamond Crew. Think about that. Every time the Eagles faced a critical down, they executed. That kind of efficiency demoralizes a defense. It allows you to basically control the flow of the game, and it directly leads to our next massive metric, time of possession. The Eagles had the ball for 39 minutes and 25 seconds. That's nearly 2/3 of an entire game. The Raiders' defense was simply worn down. They were gassed. The Eagles' offense led by a relentless ground game. That was the perfect clock-killing machine, in my opinion. They racked up 183 yards on only 46 carries with, basically Saquon providing the steady hand, grinding out 78 yards and a touchdown. Massive, massive game for him. Another good game, 2 games in a row. That wasn't a game of a bunch of big plays, a bunch of flashy plays. It basically was a game of analytical control, and I like that. The Eagles coaching staff clearly prioritized sustaining drives, and the players executed to perfection this week. The defense, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, was fresh because they were barely on the field. This is the blueprint for how the Eagles win, and that's how we win at our best. Play stingy football. Stingy football, man. Now, let's flip the script a little bit and talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. If the Eagles' performance was an analytical masterpiece, that means the Raiders was a historical footnote of failure, if you want to say that. Look, the numbers you need to remember is 75. The Raiders offense managed to get a total of 75 net yards for the entire game. 75.
Our inability to just get the ball moving where we have some kind of substance of a run game to play off of. And when you don't convert on third down, you just don't get the chances. I mean, we said this, unfortunately, guys, it's the same kind of story.
That analytical failure starts and ends with their inability to move the chains. The Raiders were horrific. 1 for 11, that's 9.1% on third downs. When you can't convert a single third down, you can't sustain a single drive, and you put your defense in impossible positions, this is a metric that separates a competitive team from one that is simply waiting for the game to end. Basically waiting for the fat lady to sing. And guess what? That fat lady's singing. And the quarterback play was equally a disaster. Kenny Pickett was under constant duress, taking 4 sacks for a loss of 35 yards. His final passer rating of 47.9 is abysmal. It's abysmal. His 64 yards passing on 25 attempts shows a complete lack of ability to push the ball downfield. Things that we seen here in Philly. Don't let people ever tell you that Kenny Pickett is good and his hands are very, very small. Pause. Even when he completed a pass, it was often for a minimal gain. Rookie tight end Brock Bowers led the team with 6 receptions. You know how much I'm a Brock Bowers guy, but he couldn't even get the ball to Brock. But he only had 28 yards, averaging a pathetic 4.7 yards per catch. That tells you everything you need to know about the lack of separation and conservation, effectiveness, play calling. Everything was just terrible today for the Raiders. Let's talk about the Raiders defense too, man. To their credit, they was on the field for 40 minutes, but even though they couldn't stop the bleeding, the analytical takeaway here is that this team is broken on the offensive side of the ball. This just isn't a loss. It's a structural failure that points directly to the coaching and personnel issues, if you want to be honest, if you want my take. The shutout loss, the 75 total yards, these are metrics of a team that has completely checked out. They looking for that first round pick. They looking for that pick. You know what I mean? A tank job at its best. A tank job at its best. All right, Diamond Crew. Let's move from the cold, the hard numbers to the hot takes and what this means for the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward for the rest of the season. All right, for the Eagles, man, this is a win, and it's also a sigh of relief. It proves that the team, when focused, can still execute at an elite level. The analytical dominance and third down efficiencies is the key to their Super Bowl aspirations, in my opinion. If they can maintain that level of control, especially, with Hurts playing mistake-free football, they are absolutely a threat in the NFC. The defense is elite. Holding the team to 75 yards is a huge confidence boost. We saw Brandon Graham turn back the clock a little bit with 2 sacks today. Shout out to BG. Shout out to Zach Bond with a critical interception at a great time. This is the defense we have been seeing all year, and we expect to see for the remainder of the season. This defense can win a Super Bowl. Now, let's talk about the Raiders. The future is bleak. This loss solidifies their march towards basically a top 5 pick, like I said. The analytical data suggests that they are one of the worst offensive teams in the National Football League. We spoke about that earlier. The question now shifts from can they win to who is going to be the coach next year? You know what I'm saying? And which quarterback are they going to draft? Because Geno Smith is not the answer, and neither is Kenny Pickett, if you want to be honest. When your team is outgained by over 300 yards and posts a 9.1% third down conversion rate, you are in full rebuild mode. The silver lining is that this performance makes the decision-making process for the front office very easy this offseason. You know what I'm saying? That's what you call looking at the glass half full. My hot take is the Eagles' performance was a direct result of a simplified game plan designed to reestablish their identity. They didn't try to get cute. They just ran the football and converted third downs. our game. That's how the Eagles play football. If they can stick to this analytical blueprint, they can make a deep run in the playoffs. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, for this analytical breakdown. Of the Philadelphia Eagles 31-0 shutout victory over the Raiders. Look, man, the numbers didn't lie. Diamond Crew. The Eagles dominated the metrics of control, and the Raiders suffered analytical collapse, but I think they were ready for that. They were ready for that. And look, man, like I said, we got a short week coming up. The Philadelphia Eagles play the Washington Commanders on Saturday. So we're going to, probably watch a little tape on this game. And we got to hurry up and get ready for the Commanders on Saturday. I really think that's another get-right game, another game that the Philadelphia Eagles should win convincingly. But as always, man, thank y'all for tuning in to the Diamond Crew Sports Podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all social media platforms for more hot take and shorts, the analytical breakdowns throughout the week. Please make sure you tapped in with all the channels. We'll be back next time to break down the next slate of games for the Philadelphia Eagles. Until then, man, keep it locked. Keep it analytical, and we'll talk to you soon, man. If you made it this far in the video and you felt like this puppy helped you out, please do me a favor and do all those things to keep the channel in rotation. But until next time, Hotta out.
It's Diamond Crew. This the crew. This here most definitely what we do.